test that audio and the video for you. And now we have louder.
That's pretty good.
My test 1, 2, 1, 2. The mic is right here because we are using this mic. No, not this one, because this is not connected to.
Okay.
So you see that? It's the same as a system.
Okay, that's fine. Then leave it the way it is. Yeah. How about the video?
No, not it.
You can hear us?
So you can hear now.
Professor Bankram, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you turn on the camera from your side?
Say it again, Mohammed.
There's a camera on your side. Can you please turn it on?
That's the wireless mic here.
Yes, they can hear you.
Okay. And these I want me to tell you that if you want to switch the camera, so how you can switch it. So right now, this we are using this camera, the Logitech. So I don't have the glasses with me, but can you see? I'm using the Logitech. So what you're going to use is to use sound.
There wants to be made.
So this is the camera. This is up to you. On the Logitech, it's going to be that one. Is that? Okay, that's easy.
Yes.
And the audio one. Okay, well, unmute them because for the conversation, you can have it close to the
Okay.
and you can see the view here. You can open speakers right now, right? Or, you know, usually I use.
You can see.
It's the same. I know.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Oh, we have a.
Let's.
I'll share this.
That's right.
Okay.
You can share the screen from that side. This. Screen.
Oh, perfect.
You click it, you can click it now, and then you just click it. And then you just the screen will see your.
We just perfect.
So now, want to stop sharing, want to stop sharing. Yep. Sharing. But you have that open, the option, so that once you want to switch it, you can just click on it, share screen, and then you will see that screen.
Perfect. Okay, I think we have the bases covered.
Okay, very good.
I think that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
And this is the mic that you can speak, and then it bring back to the mixer, so it's out from this speakers into our.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Can we go on that actual Zoom because the panel?
That's cool.
This is.
You wanna test it?
We're gonna be interpreting the data and building easier to use interactive virtual access to that. Or
See, there was talking, and then they didn't mute this. They didn't mute themselves so that we can hear everything that what they call it.
Yeah, also live streaming. How do I, is it playing?
Right now it's streaming,
It's streaming already?
yeah, see,
So there's a delay there, right? Okay.
if you want to see that, you can just move the camera.
Yeah. It's probably like a loud.
Mark, can you do me a favor? Can you go to the live stream I sent you? Can you see it?
You cannot see him because of the CPU, the camera.
Yeah, that's
No, he's gonna come in a minute. I think he's gonna be there, right there. See, now, okay.
let me click it. See.
It's a few minutes delay.
yeah, yeah. Hey Matt, could you just unmute and speak for a second just to test the audio?
Matt is on mute, right?
Yeah. Can you speak up a little bit?
Matt is on mute, right?
Okay, is this,
You have something.
Yeah. Do you hear me fine?
you're pretty quiet.
Okay.
It's pretty muted.
So maybe I'll use the mic. Also.
Okay, is this,
All right. Is this better?
it doesn't, it honestly doesn't seem like the mic is working.
Yeah, you're pretty quiet.
Is this better?
No, you cannot use this one.
This one.
No, use this
Oh,
mic.
Matt, is this better for the audio?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Okay, you're all set. Glad it's working. Feel free to hop off. I'll see you in like 2 hours or so.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
thank
that
you.
sounds good. See you in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Bye.
You do the boot camp and they give you a free certification. Well, hey,
The application is signed for practical purposes.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome. So we will start the session today. Thank you for all coming today. Today is our BMC Tech Equity Day. Is to broadening participation in computing, to get more women and minority student computing. So Google is here to help us. I know that it's almost towards the final exam, so it'll be less taxing on you guys. You're gonna listen, and then as much you can. And we'll do some collaboration in coming years. So this is just the start of a relationship with us, with different things we're gonna do. And ideas to kind of how to make a pathway to companies like Google, where you can get jobs, right? I mean, that's the idea, right? You guys want a job in the future, hopefully you do, right? And so we were going to work towards it. So Google is gracious enough to come today, and as I said, the scheduling, making everybody come at one time is a very challenging thing. Also, getting space for us to make this event is also challenging. We're making it happen, and I wanted to do this in person, not in Zoom. And that was a little more work, because if you do Zoom, then you can just do it tomorrow, like yesterday, but or 2 weeks ago. But the making it in person is a more challenging one. So we have different projects going on, and all those projects are basically making sure that we create a learning environment where you can be successful, not only at BMCC and beyond. Okay, so we have research project, we have workshop happening, in data science and other things. We just took like two groups of students to data science hackathon. We won first prize. So many opportunity coming. So I was going to tell you that in BMCC there are like a million opportunity, to be honest with you, right? But you cannot be part of all of it. But if you can, be part of it. So don't feel bad that sometimes something is happening and you're not available. There's another event around the corner. You could sign up for that. Okay. And also be involved in as many projects humanly possible, and that will help you graduate with more skills, and that will help you get jobs in the future, right? So I'm gonna take a minute to introduce one from Google that graciously come today, and we will start with outreach manager from Google, and we're also gonna have 4 more Googler coming in. They're a software developer. One are going to be in person here, and then 3 will be in the Zoom. And that panel is going to happen from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Yeah. Right. And then we have couple of other fun activity. One had put together, and I'm really excited about it. And we also have one thing for BMCC. I'm happy to let you know. I think I mentioned a couple of you before. We got approval for this event where we'll give you a little challenge to you guys. And then if you have time, don't feel obligated. If you only have time, that you put a couple of hours to put something together for the challenge, then you submit it, then you'll have opportunity to win prizes. Okay? That's from our programming club event. Yes.
Yeah, if we're not here about project,
No, we'll do that. I just want to let you know this particular event is part of that thing. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. I want to let Juan take over. Thank you.
Yay. Okay, hello everyone. I'm super happy that I can be here. I know that I'm kind of like behind the camera and laptop a little bit, but hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully I'm speaking loud enough. If everyone on the Zoom call, there we go. If you're on the Zoom call, please make sure to mute, just so we don't have any audio issues. As I go on through the event, feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. I'll try to get to all of them. Same thing for those joining virtually. Feel free to drop any questions or comments in the chat, and I'll try to answer them as I go along. So I was very excited to be a part of this Equity Day at BMCC. I'll talk a little bit more about my role, but essentially I work with college students to help prepare them basically to apply into the tech industry. Obviously, I'm a little biased to Google, but all of the tips that I will give you are applicable across the tech industry and frankly, for most technical roles. So with that, let me just dive right in. I want to talk a little bit about myself, just to introduce myself, so I'm not just like a random person that you listen to speak today. My name is Juan Laverde. My pronouns are he, him. So I'm originally from Colombia. I was born in Bogota. I moved when I was very young with my family. We moved around growing up. So I started off in the Boston suburbs, then moved to Chicago, and I've made my way back to the East Coast here in New York. I went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. I studied marketing and operations. Don't really use the operations one, but I learned some good skills. After that, I did my first internship and full-time with Discover Financial Services, the credit card company. You might get mail from them. I used to run their mailing campaign, like physical mail. So that was an interesting learning experience. But I was ultimately only there for 9 months after I graduated. I never applied to Google in college. I didn't really think it was an opportunity available to me, major imposter syndrome. And so I never even really saw Google as like an opportunity for me to even apply. Like I didn't even get to that point. However, I was reached out to by a friend who had just started in this brand new sales program called the Sales Associate Program. I was part of the second cohort that got hired a few years ago. And so I started off in ad sales. So all those videos on YouTube where you have to wait like 12 seconds before watching, that was me. I'm so sorry. It's how we make most of our money. But I worked in ad sales. So I learned a lot about our ad tech that we have for companies. And it was a little bit of like marketing consulting. I was working with like companies like Macy's, Simply Safe, ADT, Home Security on their digital marketing campaigns on Google. However, sales was never my passion. For some people, they love it. They're really good at it. It wasn't for me. I wanted to do something different. So I ended up moving to New York about 5 years ago. Sorry, no, how long has it been? COVID always messes up my timeline. 4 years ago, still in sales, but a lot of the opportunities and a lot of the roles that are outside of sales are in New York and in California. So you are lucky to be in like one of the big tech hubs, especially for Google. So I kind of worked my way doing a lot of side projects outside of my job. And you'll see the little meme of Marge like tripping and falling. I like quickly pivoted from sales into people operations, or what we call HR. And now I'm in university programs. So I have a portfolio of schools, including CUNY schools, as well as Latin America. So I'm able to work with students and, like I mentioned, help prepare them for entering the tech industry if that's what they're interested in. So that's a little bit about me. One of the cool things, especially you'll hear during the panel, is every Googler has a different journey to the company. Not everyone starts as an intern full-time, yada, yada, that normal route. There's a lot of people that have applied several times. There's people that get in on their first time. There's people that join right out of college. There's people that join after 20 years of working in the workforce. Or there's people that are, returning to the workforce as well. So all different types of people work at this company. So like we mentioned, really the theme for today is to talk about the opportunities that you have within computing, and specifically with a computer science or related degree. So I'm excited to talk to you about those opportunities. Now, a little bit about the agenda. There is a lot going on, and I am totally mindful that it is final season and you might have classes. Feel free to step out when you need to. And that's also including like if you need to step out for the restroom or just to take a break, feel free to do that. But we do have a lot to cover today, which I'm excited to share with you. So I'll be doing a quick overview of Google. Some things you may know, some things might be new to you. I'll talk, we're actually going to switch the careers in CS and mapping your goals. So I kind of want to talk to you about what it's like to, or what career opportunities are available to you with a CS degree. A lot of people think software engineering, which is correct, but there's a lot more opportunities beyond that. So if you are someone who like I don't know if I want to be a software engineer. That's okay. There's a lot of other opportunities. Then we're going to move into our activity, which is the worksheet that you have. So I saw some of you filling it out. We will be doing that together, but thank you for getting ahead of the game. For those of you joining virtually, we will have slides that show what we are working on in person. So feel free to follow along. I recommend having a piece of paper and a pen handy if possible. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the technical interviews. If you do want to pursue a degree in computing, or you already are, the technical interviews are a big part of the recruitment process across all companies. So I want to talk you through what that process is like and how you can start preparing. And lastly, we'll end with a panel from 3 to 4. So we have 3 Googlers joining us. 2 of them are from New York, and 2 of them are calling from Austin and California. So a good mix of people. However, this is Google. We like to have some fun. So before I dive into the content, I have some Google trivia. And if you see on the table, I have some prizes. So I will be asking some trivia questions. People joining virtually, I'm so sorry. You can join in if you want to join in the chat, but I will be giving the prizes to those people in the room. So I'm going to ask a question. If you know the answer, raise your hand and you can pick one of the prizes here on the table. All right, let's get started. Does anyone know who our founders are? There we go. Okay. I thank you for the help out for the assist. Yes, Larry and Sergey are the founders of Google. They currently aren't the CEOs anymore. They manage Alphabet, which we'll talk about later. But they were the ones with the idea to come up with Google. So if you want to come up and choose a prize, we have 2 water bottles, a hat, a pencil case filled with surprises, some notebooks, and a tote, or you can grab a black notebook. The stickers is also for the pencil case if you want to grab that. Sorry, it's bent a little. It was in the tote. Okay. When was Google founded? 1998. Yes, good job. 1998, September 27th, officially. Please come up and grab a prize. It was kicked off on, so Larry and Sergey were actually kicked off of the Stanford campus, and they started their business in a garage. That's how Google started. So very entrepreneurial in the 1998, right before the turn of the century. Does anyone know where Google's first office was? No, it is like a specific location. No, closer.
Mountain View, California.
Yes, but I'm looking for a specific location. I'll give you a hint. Someone said basement. That is warmer. Oh, garage. Yes. Nice. Come up and get a prize, please. So they had funding for this idea, but they didn't have an office space, and there was no such thing as WeWork or like coffee shops that had places for you to, run a business. Oh, did I get signed out? No, I'm still in here. Okay. So what they did is they rented out a garage from an employee of IBM. That person is Susan Wojcicki, and she's currently the CEO of YouTube. She was their 16th employee, I believe. So pretty cool. Does anyone know what the parent name of Google is? Yes, who said that? Yes, come up and grab your prize. Yes, so Alphabet is actually a collection of companies, the largest of which is Google. So the reason we did this is because Google is becoming so large. We're already such a giant company, and we have so many different ideas and products that we're working on. It honestly just made sense to split into smaller companies where we have companies such as Calico, which focuses on lengthening a human's life. We have Life Sciences, which works on a product that works on glucose sensing contact lenses. So like really cutting edge technology, that is what is kind of housed under Alphabet. So not Google, there are companies outside of that. After Mountain View, which city in North America is the largest Google office? Yeah, who said New York? Okay, but you answered already. Did someone else? Yeah, I saw your hand raised. Okay, yeah, come up and grab a prize. So y'all are very lucky. You are in the second largest office location. We have 5 buildings. Like I don't know, they just like keep building more things, but our main one is on 9th Ave, 8th and 9th Ave. It takes up an entire avenue. And we have the buildings behind that. We also own Chelsea Market, and a couple of buildings behind that, and then a few in Hudson. So lots of people, lots of office space. Does anyone know who the current CEO is? If you haven't answered yet. Oh, but yes. Oh, but you answered, right? Okay. Well, that was the right answer. So
Sundar Pichai.
yes, thank you for responding virtually. I appreciate it. Yes, as of 2015, Sundar was announced as the CEO. Actually, yesterday we had Google I/O, which is essentially the same thing as like, I don't know what, I forgot the name for like Apple's equivalent, but it's when we basically launch all of our new technology, new products, things that we're working on. So if you want to check that out, I'm sure there's recaps online that you can look at, but a lot of cool new technology, especially centered around AI, which has been the hot topic in the tech industry and I would say society in general. All right, what was Google's first product? Don't answer if you haven't said yes.
D1?
No. Our first project, just think of like a main thing.
Google Glasses?
Who said search? No, but you had your hand raised. Were you gonna say Google search? Come on up and get a prize. Come on up and get a prize.
The search engine.
Yes. So search. So not a trick question. This was the backbone and continues to be the backbone of our business. Our current focus is honestly to make searching the web even simpler, even faster, making sure people are getting the correct results and getting the information that they need. All right, thank you for the trivia. That is all the questions, but as you can see, we still have some things left. So if you ask questions during the panel, you will get a prize. So our motto at Google is to build for everyone, but what exactly does that mean? So at Google, diversity, equity, and inclusion are, business imperatives. And this goes for, I hope a lot of companies, some are more far along than others in terms of advancing representation, inclusivity, and accessibility. This is something really important for Google because historically we were not super diverse. We hired a lot of folks from Ivy Leagues that had the same way of thinking, same backgrounds, similar upbringings. And so when you have such a homogenous group of people, like you can only go so far. And when you think of Google, we are a company whose products are used by billions of users all across the world. So in order to build these products for everyone, we need all different types of people. We need everyone to work at this company. So that is something that we continue to work on and is very important. That's why I am lucky to be here. I didn't think I was going to ever work at Google, yet here I am after 5 years. And so it's kind of like our job to make sure that we are building a Google that is representative of our users. And we do that in many different ways. I will highlight a little bit more about Google culture, but one of the things that we love, and a lot of other companies have this too, is employee resource groups. So it's essentially communities based on similar identities that really help you meet other Googlers from similar backgrounds to create that community within the company. So you'll see some on the screen. We have AGN, which is our Asian Googler Network, BGN, our Black Googler Network, Disability Alliance, Pride, Women at Google, Hola, which is for our Latinas at Google, and many, many more, including Mixed, IBN, the Veterans Network, Trans at Google, Greyglers, which is like our older Googlers. So we have fun names for everyone. We also have a less formal one. So if you enjoy cats, I believe their group is called Muglers, but whatever, Google will do whatever to make a little pun with different names. So it's been over 20 years since Google has started. But our mission to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful has never changed. This has always been our motto when it comes to all of our products, is making that information universally accessible and useful. So this mission is really special because no matter what job you have at the company, whether it's sales, where I started, whether you're a software engineer, whether you're in human resources, we're all held to these similar standards. And it's one of the cool things that I like about the company is you can be very open and vocal about not only your values, but the company's values, and making sure that we are doing things that align with our motto. So the company structure, as we mentioned, the larger company is Alphabet, but we can split it into two main arms. We have Google, which is the largest, which is kind of the majority of Alphabet. And then we also have our other organizations that are commonly referred to as our BETS, B-E-T-S. So you can see some of the examples there. Waymo is for self-driving cars. We have X, which creates cutting-edge technology to solve some of the world's hardest problems. We have Verily, if you see right there, which is to use world health data and make it useful so that people can enjoy healthier lives. And so there's many, many others. We also own Waze. So if you ever use Waze to get around, that's actually a Google company. They run very similar to Maps. So it's basically your preference, which one you want to use.
I like Waze more. Sorry.
You like Waze more? Yeah. But yeah, that's basically the product.
Right.
So now for Google, it's comprised of basically three parts. So these three parts help the company run effectively. You have our tech function, which is our largest one, that includes all of our engineering and product groups, as well as our data centers and infrastructure teams. So this basically is the team that makes all of our products that we sell, give for free to the public. It also includes YouTube and Google Cloud, which are growing products and teams in Google right now. Then we have the global business organization, which includes teams around the world that do sales, ad support, marketing, partnership development. So you might have seen that Google partnered with ADT to help improve their security systems. So those types of teams live under global business organization. This is actually where I started. And then lastly, we have the global advisory function, or GAF, which is hilarious to me. But this includes our general and administrative teams. So teams such as real estate, because we're always expanding, people operations or HR, finance, legal, those type of teams live under GAF. And all of these teams make sure that the company runs smoothly as possible. Without any of these, we wouldn't be able to run. And we have employees all over the world. This is just like a quick diagram of all our different offices. So we'll talk a little bit more about what those benefits of having offices around the world, but it's really cool. You are working with people in all different time zones, all different places, all different walks of life. So that is one of the cool things that I like. And you're always bound to meet new people due to the sheer size of the company. So a little bit about Google culture. There are a couple Google-wide culture aspects, no matter if you're working remotely or in the office. But what's cool is that each office and region does have its own unique culture. So I've worked in the Chicago office. It's very different than the New York office, which is very different from the Mexico City office. So I like being able to travel to all these different places and see, what is life like in this office. One of the favorite aspects of working here is being committed to your future and basically continuing your development once you start at the company. I feel like when I actually started at Google, I learned so much more outside of my sales role because we offer so many internal development opportunities. So for example, we have Grow classes, which are essentially classes that you can sign up for at any time. And they cover things from intro to Python to how to manage your inbox effectively to what else have I taken? to courses even on like allyship, right? So disability allyship, Muslim allyship. These are all courses that I have taken. So it's not necessarily related to your role. It doesn't have to be. So just a lot of opportunities to learn about very different things. We do offer tuition reimbursement. One, if you're going to like return to school, if you're currently in school, Google will help pay for some of your tuition. I believe it's up to, I'm trying to remember the percentage. It's a couple $1,000s per year that they're able to match. I don't have the exact numbers. We also have things called bungees and 20%. Bungees are basically like internal internships that you can take at the company. So someone might post a bungee for 6 months on a team that you're interested in. You can apply and leave your team for 6 months and come back and join that team again. So it's like an opportunity to explore something new. And a lot of times this leads to like a full-time job on that new team. If you can't do a bungee, we do have 20% roles. So you can spend 20% of your time working on a separate project. This is actually how Gmail got created. There was an engineer who was like, I want to do a 20% role to improve our like email product. And that's how Gmail was born. So I've been able to do a couple. It actually helped me land this job. And so those are, again, cool things that you can do once you're in the company. And internal mobility. I was able to move from Chicago to New York. I was able to move from sales into people operations. Like these are very big changes that I was still able to do within the company. Another thing is we default to open. So at Google, we do have a culture of openness and transparency. We have a lot of public meetings, basically town halls, where Googlers can not only listen to the newest updates in the company, but they can also directly ask leadership. For example, they can ask Sundar and different executives any questions they'd like. So that level of transparency is pretty nice. And not only that, a lot of our projects, we do open source. So we provide those tools for anyone who is interested in working on our projects. So in addition to that, we also have employee resource groups, which I mentioned before, G2G instructors, which gives you an opportunity to either teach something that you're interested in to other folks, or to take a class by a Googler to also teach on a subject that they are interested in. And there's a ton of mentorship once you start at the company. So I have like 2 mentors, and they have helped guide me in the past 5 years through all those changes that I mentioned before. All right, so that is a little bit about Google. Now we can get into, where did this go? I actually want to skip to a different slide. Okay. There we go. So now I want to talk, before we get into the activity, is like, what can you do with a CS degree? How many of you are either already taking CS type classes or are interested in taking CS classes? Okay, awesome. So I want to tell you a little bit about, one, what does like an internship or a full-time role look like within CS? And then I'll talk a little bit more about the different types of roles that you can do with a technical degree. So first, internship. This is where most of you might be, whether you're in like your first year or second year of schooling. Internship is a part of that recruitment process as a student. So in general, for tech internships, these usually last 12 to 14 weeks. You have a manager, you also have a mentor. So you have a manager who you're working on your summer project with, you have one-on-ones with them, they're reviewing your code, making sure you're meeting your goals for that summer, and help answer with any questions. Whereas your mentor gives you more career advice, networking, and exposure to Google's culture. You can obviously be a part of our ERGs, but you also get additional perks and benefits as a full-time Googler would. So food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, lots of yummy snacks, all the different facilities that we have within our building. So that includes our gyms, but our meditation spaces, our nap pods, which I have used them and they are super comfortable. But also things like education reimbursement. So if you are like currently studying while you're also doing your internship, we can help with that as well. Salary is pretty competitive. And so that is something that we like to mention. And we do offer a mix of virtual and in-person. Most of the internships will be hybrid. So you'll be expected to be in the office 3 times a week, and twice you can work remotely. And that is if you are not virtual. If you are not virtual, we also do help with a relocation bonus. So if your internship is in California, we will help with that moving process. Okay, but like, what do you actually do as an intern? I think that like is what matters the most. Interns do have a meaningful impact if you work at Google. They'll work on things that don't just meet the needs of the team, but can actually reach millions and billions of users. So they do have a profound impact. So you get to work on these like really cool projects. Some of the questions that I get is like, is there a typical day for an intern that you could describe? The short answer is no, because there's so much diversity within the types of projects that you work on. And there's a lot of flexibility within that. So I'm going to give some examples of previous interns and the types of projects that they worked on. So we have Angelica Willis. She was a SWE intern. She is currently a full-time software engineer. So during her internship, she worked on the medical brain team doing breast cancer detection. So she essentially trained the system to generate new examples of cancer, which successfully fooled a radiologist and eliminated 22% of the cancer misses.
Professor Muhammad.
Okay. If you have a question and you're virtual, please write it in the chat. Thank you. So, well, first of all, that is amazing. Eliminated 22% of cancer misses using this algorithm that she created. And it was basically a way of using machine learning and how it affects our health. So her example is just an example project of Google's efforts to create products that have a profound impact. And that is something she was able to work on. Okay, here we have Gustavo. So Gustavo was a software engineer intern in Latin America. So he worked on a project called Project Unicorn. And Gustavo's project is an example of how Googlers use their access to company information to share their work with the world so it can benefit others. So what does that mean? The specific project that he did was build a new educational experience for A4K, which is Assistant for Kids. So this is essentially improving the experience of kids signed in or using Google Assistant to help them answer questions. So for example, like when a kid asks, what's the sun? Hey, Google, what is the sun? I hope none of my devices go off. You would usually pull like a Wikipedia entry of like the sun is a large gas, planet or whatever. What this program did is provide more simple answers for kids so they could better understand what the sun was in an easier and more digestible way. All right. All right, here is another example. We have 2 people here. We have Riley and Jessica. Both of them were STEP interns. These are internships if you are a freshman or sophomore. So first year or second year. So what these 2 did is they worked on a project. Riley specifically created an 8-week summer camp for a group of 50 middle school students from East Palo Alto community and helped create a CS program for them. Jessica made a significant impact in Google during our internship by organizing Lean In Circle, which is a community of female interns to discuss their internships and experiences in tech. So you can see these things are not as tech focused, but have the impact in the tech space. All right, so this is kind of like when you can think about like, okay, why am I here? Why am I at BMCC? Why am I here in the session listening to me speak? Some of the questions that you might ask yourself are, okay, like, what do I want to do for a living? What do I want to do in the next, 10 years or so? And an important thing to note is like, what are the factors that are important to you when deciding what type of job you want? It's really different from person to person. For example, like some people's main factor will be benefits. Maybe they have a family, and so they want to make sure that they have good benefits to help with that. For other people, it might be location. Like I want to stay in New York, so that is my most important factor. And for others, it's salary, right? Like how much am I getting paid? All of these are totally valid, and it will change from person to person. But these are important questions to ask yourself as you're thinking, like, what type of jobs do I want? So I do want to mention this slide. I just want to be super transparent of like, this is the starting salary for software engineers in different locations and at different companies. As you can see, it's pretty competitive. And I honestly just want to show you this because like, this might be a factor for some of you. It certainly was a factor for me when I was looking for jobs. Like I am not just sustaining myself, I am helping my family in Colombia. I am helping my family that lives here. So there are many other reasons. So I just like to share this and just be super transparent about what you could potentially be making with a CS degree. So if you're not interested in software engineering, if those projects didn't sound the most interesting, that's okay. There's many other things that we can do or that you can do. So I'm going to jump through, or I'm going to run through several different programs and opportunities that we have at Google so that you are aware of not only what you can do at Google, but a lot of these roles are similar at other tech companies. We have something called the Cloud Technical Residency Program. So like I mentioned, Google Cloud is a growing organization within the company. And this is a rotational program that is based in Atlanta and in Austin. And so you'll be working in areas such as customer engineering and technical support and engineering professional services. So essentially what you will be doing is working with a lot of these companies that are using our Google Cloud platform and helping them with implementation, with support. So they need that technical background because some of these companies don't have that. So it's really helpful to have a bachelor's degree. Usually we're looking for something technical, strong communication skills. This is going to be a reoccurring skill, and I'll mention why it's really important in a couple slides. Any sort of either leadership experience or other work experience that you can share. Work experience does not necessarily mean a job or an internship. It can be classroom projects, it can be things that you did outside of work, open source projects, things of that nature. So if you don't have an internship, if you don't have a job, you still have experience. It just comes in a different form. And also knowing how to code is going to be helpful, obviously. So coding in languages such as Java, HTML, Python, CSS, that type of stuff is really helpful. So you'll see here are some of the other qualifications that we look at. So for a lot of these, I'll be covering some internships, but a lot of these are full-time, but some of them do offer like also internships, but full-time I think is a little bit more relevant. So again, looking for that experience within engineering in some facet or another. These are just examples of internships, but again, if you have enough projects and experience that speak to your roles, you don't need to have 3 internships. That's not what that is saying. It's saying like the different types of experience that we look at. We also have things called technical writers. I didn't know this existed till I started this job. But what our technical writers essentially do is they capture knowledge about our new technology that Googlers make so that others can use that technology to be more productive and to do it very quickly. So in this role, you're preparing instruction manuals, you're crafting how-to guides, journal articles that will be externally and internally published, and other supporting documents. So if you are someone who's really good at reading a lot of information and condensing it in a very simple way, this might be something that you're interested in. you have to have a good understanding of the technology and kind of the language. And if writing is something that you like to do, or putting together documentation, like some people are really, really good at it also, this might be something that you're interested in. So just going here, these are some of the things that we look at. As you can see here, like you don't need a degree in just CS. You can also have a degree in journalism, communication, IT, systems management. So this role is open to other degrees outside of CS. But having a sort of CS and technical background is super helpful, because as you can see in the minimum qualifications, we do want some experience in some coding languages. And if you have, for example, like written in the past, I used to write for our university blog, that could be something helpful too. And so what we're really looking here is for any experience within technical writing, any experience in project leadership. So basically saying like, okay, for my final, I had a group project that I was the lead of, and we were able to successfully complete the project. We received the score. This is the impact that it had. That's just an example. And also some sort of experience that shows your technical ability. That kind of shows like, okay, they have an understanding of CS concepts like data structures and algorithms. We also have application engineer. So application engineer help build our internal applications and tools for Googlers. So this company is gigantic and we have a lot of internal resources that Googlers use, but we need engineers to run, manage, and help build those resources and new tools. So you could be working on tools that support teams such as finance, sales, HR, supply chain, other engineers. You essentially know how the business system of the company works on the back end, and you work on integrating or migrating applications internally, sometimes just with Google, sometimes with other vendors. So this is really cool. This is a very coding heavy role. You're coding around 70 to 80% of the time. So if coding is your bread and butter, if that is what you love, if you really just want to be doing that, applications engineer might be a cool role to look at. And so you will be working in teams with other business analysts to understand what are the needs of these different departments that you work with, and what tools can you create or resources, or updating existing tools for them. So for example, an example of an AE project was Gmail, that was developed by an applications engineer. Also our candidate tracking system that our HR team uses, they work on that. And maybe one that isn't as impactful but very useful is our shuttle app for Googlers in California. So because the campus is so big, they have like their own My MTA app equivalent. That is also created by an applications engineer. So again, you don't need a master's degree in most cases. I just want to point that out. It has it here for minimum qualifications, but just a bachelor's is fine. Most of the experience is honestly similar to all the other roles. And I think the biggest things to call out here is calling out any work that you have within like system integrations, or more coding heavy projects. So again, like I've already mentioned like 3 different types of roles that you could have by having a CS type degree, and all of them are very different. We also have a developer programs engineer. They're also called DPEs, and they are also called the face of Google, the face of Google for other developers. Basically, what developer program engineers do is write sample code and client libraries that contribute to our open source projects. So you're helping create these open source projects that like thousands, millions of users can help be a part of. And you honestly, a lot of your work is building a strong community for developer products by blogging, writing technical articles, making presentations for developers, participating in developer conferences. So this is a really cool role because it's a lot of like, I almost want to say like branding type stuff, and a lot of more like external facing work. So you do, again, need to have that technical background, but the role itself isn't hugely technical. You'll only be coding around 50% of the time, if that. But you are able to manage and participate in a lot of these cool developer forums, conferences. You help debug and solve coding problems in your open source projects with developers all across the world. So strong candidates for this role will have experience with open source projects, which is a great way to start building your skills and to add things to your resume, just FYI. You also have attended hackathons. You have done pitch contests. You've been a part of conferences. Perhaps you have like your own technical blog. These are kind of things that we look for. So again, very similar or slightly different things that we look at. So you can see here, extracurriculars. They're not all technical. It's like, do you have a YouTube channel? Have you done like public engagements, things like that? So think of this as Google I/O, right? That I just mentioned before. This is essentially your job all the time, is you are advocating for your projects, you're helping build community within developers. It's really engaging and super interactive. We also have TPMs, our technical program managers. They are the liaison between the product and engineers and the design teams. So essentially what they do, if you think of like a marketing team, they're like, we want to offer AI backgrounds for your Gmails, right? The TPM would go to the AI team or whatever developer team, engineering team that is, and say, this is what they want to do. And then they work with the engineering team on defining the timeline, the resources that will be needed, things of that nature, any obstacles that will come in. So this is a really cool role where it's like half technical, half project management. So you really need strong communication skills in this role, because you are going to be convincing engineers to make changes or additional features, or pushing back on the marketing teams if their expectations aren't realistic. So pretty cool role. Again, you'll see here, CS degree, engineering management degree, coding experience is going to be for almost all the roles. But anything that shows that you have owned a project or a program. So again, that doesn't just have to be through work. It can be through work, but it can also be through your studies. Your analytical ability, so being able to problem solve hypothetical situations. And again, strong communication skills. Not only that, we also have UX, UI. So if you are more of the creative type, if you even are interested in graphic design type roles, UI, UX might be a good option for you. So essentially, there's a couple of different types of roles that you can see here on the slide. We have front-end UX engineers who are working on like Gmail, YouTube, Google search, what that looks like, making sure it is user-friendly and accessible. You have UX engineers designs. So they are more on like the aesthetics of the products and coding a lot in JavaScript, HTML, CSS. But we also have things such as quantitative researchers. So this is like really heavy into statistics. So if that's something that you're interested in, and many more. So you'll see the last three actually don't require any coding at all, but you still need that technical experience. So one thing I'll mention here is for internships. They do have UX UI internships. Those usually go up in January. So obviously those have passed now, but they have like a slightly different timeline. So things to note here is, again, bachelor's in CS or design. This is definitely a role where you can be a little bit more creative. You might have a portfolio of designs that you have worked on if you have done this before. But this is definitely a role where you can demonstrate your creativity, your communication, and your technical skills all combined. Now, I believe, let me make sure I'm on. Perfect. There's just a couple. I think this might be the last one. Is Sorry, I lost where it was. There we go. So as a security engineer, Google has a lot of information. We have a lot of data, my data, your data, everyone's data. So the security team really works on creating the safest operating environment for Google's users and developers. So they will be working on our network boundaries, making sure our computer systems are safe from cyber attacks. We really focus on two things. We have the defense side, which works on a broad range of devices that are actively monitoring our systems for any sort of cyber attack or intrusions. And then we also have the offensive and testing side, where we basically have hackers that are trying to get into our systems. That is essentially their job. And it's their job to identify and fix any security flaws or vulnerabilities. So both these areas build tools and scripts or help with automation to help achieve a more secure Google. So candidates here, again, a CS degree, experience with coding, but hackathons is really a big one. Like if you can get involved in a hackathon in some shape or form in the next year, this summer even, there's so many free ones, virtual ones that you can do. You don't have to be great at it. Let's be clear, like you don't have to be a prodigal coder to participate in a hackathon. The point is to get experience, to meet people, and to also put stuff on your resume. So even outside of that, there are so many other roles outside of engineering that you are open to, even if you have a technical degree. So that can be working on our sales business, that can be working as an administrative assistant, things within Google Cloud, our Cloud Sales Academy. So there's a lot of things that you can do with a CS degree, even if it's not just software engineering. And I hope you are able to get that. Coding skills can take you farther. So I just like to mention that after your time studying, whether you are just here for 2 years or if you plan on transferring to other schools, maybe some CUNY schools, that coding skills can really do a lot for you in the long run. It's worth the investment. You can see here on the slides that software job demand has increased by 24%. So we're really, software engineers are always going to be in high demand. So I do encourage you to, as you're pursuing the rest of your education, to also pursue a strong foundation within computer science fundamentals, because it can benefit your career, even if you decide not to go into software engineering directly. So that's why even starting now, regardless of where you are in your academic career, you can get started right now, and it is going to help. And I mean, these are just some of the products that Google offers, and we haven't been just a search engine for a while. But in order for us to really build these products well, that's why we hire so broadly within the tech side of the company. That is why we want people such as yourselves. That's again why we are trying to not just hire the same people, and also specifically in New York. We want to hire New York talent. We want to hire local native New Yorkers. We don't want to bring people in from California or for different parts of the country to work at Google. We have plenty of great talent and people here, and that's why we're here. And I'll just note, wherever you may be, it's easier to figure out what you don't like than what you do like. So don't stress out if you're like, I don't know if I like CS, or I don't know if I like what I'm studying right now. Or I'm nervous, what happens if I don't like CS? What happens if you do like CS? But all I want to say is that it's easier to figure out what you don't like, and that helps guide you to the things that you potentially will. You are constantly in a state of exploration. Even when you leave your studies, you are still learning, you're still growing as a person, you change all the time. So just keep this in mind and don't have that much pressure on yourself. If you don't exactly know what you want to do, that's okay. So now that I've shared a little bit about the different types of roles, I just want to share a couple things that you can be doing in your first and second years of studying. However, if you are in different years, that is totally okay. This is just things that you should be working on right now if you're interested in entering the tech industry. So let's say how many of you are like finishing your first year, or like, I don't want to say freshman, but potentially you've done 2 semesters. Awesome. So if you haven't done any of these things, that's okay. You can do them this summer. You can work on them for next semester. At least 1 CS course and 1 core math course, and 1 sort of project that centers around programming language. Java, C++, and Python are the most popular languages at Google, just an FYI. And just growing your foundational knowledge of computer science, technology, foundational skills. So building an understanding of formal logic. So data structures and algorithms are big ones. Just understanding how formal logic works. Excuse me. Being able to read and understand code. Oh, sorry, I keep clicking out of my speaker notes. There we go. And also things like debugging. I want to highlight debugging, and you can see on the slide it says debug, debug, debug. Debugging are things that you can do online, and essentially this is a great way to practice your coding skills. This is something that you don't have to do within the classroom. You can do on your own time. Debugging is essentially finding solutions to incorrect code. And it's a great way to apply your knowledge of code and making sure that you can read and understand code correctly. So if your school, if BMCC, there are classes that you are interested in, but are either are not at BMCC, or maybe they aren't that semester, don't worry. There are many other resources. You can see here at the bottom, Google Applied CS, our Tech Dev Guide, and Build Your Future are all resources that you can use this summer to just like get more informed on how to start. I will share this information too afterwards. So feel free to take notes, but I will also be sharing some of this. Other things that you can be doing in your first year or any year is getting involved if you can. I realize that's not always an opportunity for everyone. A lot of people are also working, are caregivers. So this might not be as easy, but do what you can with what you're able to do. So one thing that is super helpful is joining any sort of organization, CS related. It's a great way to get mentors, to network, that could potentially lead to job opportunities. Hackathons and competitions are super helpful, super easy, and great things that you can put on your resume. You don't have to be the winner, but just participating in them is already such a great experience. Not only that, building a GitHub profile. GitHub is essentially a site, if you're not familiar, where you can post some of the projects, CS-related projects that you have worked on, and you can put this on your resume. And so recruiters will look at your GitHub if you have it on there. And we have a lot of open source projects and online competitions that you can do from the comfort of your bed or your sofa if you want to. And then obviously, we do have internship programs. This is really important. Creating and optimizing your online profiles. Is BMCC on Handshake? Yes? Okay. I knew that like some of the CUNY schools were joining Handshake, but Handshake is essentially a tool that recruiters and companies use to engage with students. Similar to LinkedIn, but this is like very student focused. Make sure if you don't have a LinkedIn, I would recommend creating one. If you do have one, make sure that it is updated as possible. So upload your most recent resume, include your education and coursework, include examples of your work, if you have a GitHub, anything else that you may have. If it's not a lot, that's okay. Put what you have and start working on building out your experiences. So one of the things that I will say for Google is we work backwards from your graduation date to identify what roles you're eligible for. So if you are like BMCC, when you do transfer, you might not have the standard 4 years. You might finish in like 4.5 or 5 years. So your graduation date should reflect that, because we go backwards from your estimated graduation date to define what roles you're available for. Okay, other things that you can be building on if you are, let's say, going to your second year, or you have some of that foundational knowledge. Data structures and algorithms is really big. It's one of the things that we look for on your resume, one of the first things that we look for. If I look at your resume, I'm not a recruiter, but I would have your resume and I will look for your graduation date, if you have taken data structures and algorithms, or if you have data structures and algorithms experience on your resume. Those are going to be the big things that I look for, and your major. So I recommend, if you can't take a data structures and algorithms class in the next couple semesters, definitely try to work on projects or familiarize yourself with the concepts and add that to your resume. If you do not have that on your resume and you have it on your transcript, that's cool, we can double check. But the best thing you can do is have data structures and algorithms somewhere on your resume. Additionally, proficiency in one or more languages. So by this point, if you're in like your third, fourth semester, being pretty good at Java, C++, Python. There are many others. We recommend being familiar with at least 2 languages and have those examples also in your resume. Any sort of personal projects or collaborative CS projects. So maybe in your classes, you had a group final or a personal final or a midterm that went really well and you really liked that work, you can include that also. But that should be experience that you should be looking to have in that third and fourth semester. Mock interviews, I'll talk about more about interviewing later, but this is super important just for practice. And again, internship stuff. So I know I talked a lot, but now I want to go into the activity portion. We'll be doing this for about the next 30 minutes, and then we'll take a quick break before we go into the technical interview portion of the day. So if you have your worksheets, we will be using that for the people that are joining virtually. If you have a pen and paper ready, that would be the best. If you want to write some of this stuff down. Okay. So these activities are all for your benefit. This has nothing to do with Google. This has nothing to do with applying. I'm not going to take these back. These are just things to help you get in a mindset that might help you to answer some of these questions of what do I need to work on? Or what areas do I want to invest my time in a little bit more? So if you see on the screen or look at your first page, this is the wheel of student life. So on the wheel in your mind or using a pen, plot your current level of satisfaction in each of these areas. Oh yeah, oh, cancel. Oh, that would have been very interesting. So you can start right now. You can see that the different sections include friends and family, fun, I think there's career, academics, there's all these different areas. And so mark if you're feeling satisfied or not satisfied in some of those things. So for example, if you're not super happy with your knowledge of C++, you might want to develop it further and mark it as a 1 or 2 under technical skills. So do that for each of the sections on the circle, and then draw a continuous line to connect all the dots around the wheel. And this will show the shape of your current wheel of life and might also indicate where you want to focus more or less of your attention. One thing I like to call out as you're doing this, so keep working on your circle and I'll just keep talking. Your wheel is always changing, right? So it is unlikely, and I hope none of you expect to have 10s across the board. That is not realistic, and that's okay. This is really just a tool or exercise to help you identify what the right amount of balance would look like in each of these areas, whether you're a student, whether you're a part-time student, or whether you're getting ready to start your career. So once you have completed that, one of the things that you can kind of reflect on is, where in your life are you very satisfied? Maybe you're really satisfied with friends and family. You're like, you know what? I love my family. I love my group of friends that I have. This is an area that I'm very satisfied in. And what allowed you to achieve this level of satisfaction? Okay, so maybe it was we have every other week I meet up with my group of friends and we watch a movie and have a movie night, or we grab a drink, something like that. And so think about like what is causing this to be an area that you're really satisfied with. Then look on the opposite side. Where are areas where you have lower scores? So maybe that isn't the work experience category. Okay, what might be contributing to that? Maybe it's I haven't had time to apply, or I'm still really early in my studies, and so I don't feel super comfortable. Or I have interviewed, but I haven't done super well in the interview process. And then what is one area that you want to focus on? So maybe because your friends and family are at a 10, you're like, okay, I don't really need to focus on improving that area. I feel very satisfied. And what can you do? So in this example, they have attend a technical interview prep session, or look up technical interviews online and do some practice ones. Also think about your motivation, right? We have intrinsic motivation, which occurs when we're motivated to perform or engage in an activity due to an external reward. So perhaps you're like, I want to study CS. Your motivation is so I can provide for my family, or it's because I want to have a successful job. And maybe I want to get an apartment in New York and it's very expensive to live in the city. Or maybe the reward is just recognition or a promotion even. There's also intrinsic motivation that you can think about. So what is a personally rewarding reason of why you're doing this? So thinking about your motivation is really important. So every challenge, or basically what is standing in your way, every challenge or obstacle is really an opportunity to learn. I think some people are always so afraid of failing, but the reality is like that is the best way to learn. Nobody expects you to be perfect. Most often it's yourself who is putting that pressure on you to achieve these great things and to be the most excellent version of yourself. But the reality is the way that we improve, the way that we get better is by having these challenges, making mistakes. And so figuring out the purpose of the things that are in your way and what you need to do and what you can learn from it is important. So think about what is the obstacle that you're trying to reach and what are the opportunities you could create by reframing this obstacle. So I'll talk about what exactly that means, excuse me. So let's use these examples on the slide. Reframing your obstacle in a way that makes it easier to overcome. So for example, it's impossible to get a role at Google. There's so much competition. There's no point even trying. This was me in college. I didn't even give a thought to applying. And then you can see external. What are the external factors? The volume of applications, the interview process, it all just sounds like really daunting. Internally, you have given up, you feel defeated. So how might you reframe this? I like this example. It says, how might I start building experience in the skills Google technical interview assesses, with or without an opportunity to interview right now? So you're basically saying, okay, I want to work at Google, but I'm feeling really lost. What can I do to improve this skill to make me maybe not feel as defeated, or make me feel more comfortable with the interview process? One thing that you can do is leverage your strengths. So some people are like, when like the worst question you can get in an interview is like, name a strength, name a weakness. And you're like, oh, I don't know what my strengths are. Like, I can easily identify my weaknesses, but my strengths are a little bit harder. We actually have a model that we use here. It's an equation for strength building, and it's actually based on general development theory. So one of the things that I also like to call out is It's better to spend your time developing your strengths than your weaknesses. I'll say that again. It's better if you spend your time developing your strengths or your weaknesses. I am not very good with data. So a CS degree for me might not be the best route. I am not super organized, but you know what I like doing is I like public speaking, I like presenting, I enjoy career development. These are things all that I think I'm pretty good at. And in this role, I'm able to lean into those strengths. I'm not working a ton with data, and that's okay because it's not what I'm good at. And I love this job, and I think I do a good job, hopefully. So think about your top 3 strengths. If you already have some ideas, feel free to write them down. I think it might be on another page. But you can use this equation of talent times investment equals strength. So I'll kind of explain what that makes, an example of that. So let's say you might be really good at leading group projects, right? Like you know how to make sure a project meeting, a student meeting runs effectively, smoothly, identifying the goals. How can you build on that strength? So that's the investment piece. Perhaps it's getting involved in coding competitions or joining a CS student group at your school. So these are things that you can think about as you're thinking of your strengths. Another example is you might be really good at thinking through code questions. You're really good at those technical interview process, but you're not as strong at communicating or talking about your thought process out loud. How can you invest in your problem solving? So for example, that's a skill that you want to work on. Perhaps you ask a friend to practice interviewing with, or you attend an interview prep session, which we will be having later today. So if you stick around, I'll be talking about the interview process. So let's plan. Where do you want to go? We have really just scratched the surface of these reflection questions. And I want you to keep this with you so you can refer back to it and potentially do these exercises again in like 6 months, in a year, see how things have changed. Again, this is just for you. I just hope you walk out of this with like at least a better idea of what you want to do in the next month, in the next few months, in the next year. So again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities in tech outside of software engineering. I don't even think I touched on all of these here, but there's a lot that you can do. So, skip the slide. Right now, what we're doing is we are in the exploration phase. So oftentimes the planning phase, and this is called the growth graph. So as you can see, it's your growth, your personal growth on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. So essentially, in the exploration phase, you are really figuring out what your knowledge and your skill gaps are and how you can work on closing those gaps or building that knowledge. So when you have your vision in mind, there are 3 things that you can consider building towards. That's people, skills, and projects. So for example, keeping with the theme of like Google interviewing, maybe you know a Googler and you could talk to them about their interview experience at Google, or maybe you're working on a side project and you can incorporate one of Google's open source technology to increase your familiarity with Google tools. So I mentioned there was 3 things. People. So things to think about as you're working on identifying those skill gaps or that knowledge that you want to grow is, who do you admire and why? This could be a friend, it could be a mentor, it could be a celebrity even, someone that inspires you. Who has been successful in something that you're curious about? I say curious because you might be into it at first. After talking to them, you might not like it. You might be like, oh, that was something different. Maybe you know someone who has like a really cool job and you want to ask them about it. Think about a helpful professor or TA or a fellow student or student advisor. As a student, you have the opportunities here at BMCC to begin making connections with others to start building your network. I know oftentimes they're like, build your network, networking, and networking can sound so exhausting. You're like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't know what an elevator pitch is. It doesn't have to be what you might think of traditional networking, which is like standing at a career fair with a copy of your resume. Networking is really just growing the people in your network, and it doesn't have to be so formal. It can be much more relaxed. And as a student, you have all the opportunities to do that. And it's a great time to begin learning the skills of interviewing. So this is not something that you're born with. The truth is that you can network more effectively with time, and you can get a lot of practice. So no better time to start than the present. I'll just give a personal example. My first internship at Discover, I think one of the big reasons that I got it is I knew someone from my business club that was working there full time, and she helped me with the interview process, which I ended up landing the full-time role. For Google, I had someone that I interned with at Discover who years later now worked at Google. And because I stayed in touch with her, she was able to refer me to the role in Google, and that's a big part of why I'm here today. Another thing is build towards your skills. So think about this next year. You're finishing this academic year, finals are coming up. My goodness, you are almost there, you're almost done. But what skills do you want to learn this summer or next year? It could be a technical skill, but it could also be a not technical skill like communication or even time management. Work and life is a lot to balance, a lot to handle. Some people are working, studying, and everything else. And so it can be overwhelming. So maybe you want to learn how to better time manage and using your Google Calendar to optimize your work. And remember to ask yourself, what energizes you the most? Like, what are you really curious about or passionate about? Follow that. Don't just do what everyone else is doing. Because again, leaning into your strengths, and think about what skills you feel intrinsically motivated to build upon. And lastly, build towards projects. So if you've identified kind of these skills, these people, explore in greater depth how you can apply the knowledge that you have, but also the knowledge that you want to learn. So maybe your professor has you working on like a really cool project in class that you're super interested in. Maybe you want to like dive a little bit deeper. And so you work with that professor to create an additional project, or you work with a group of your classmates and you join a hackathon, something like that. So what are different things that you can do? And this is where you can get really creative. Like, what are some wild ideas that you have? Like, I want to create an app that does X, Y, Z. How do I get there? How do I start? Can I do it on my own? Do I need other people? So feel free to get entrepreneurial in this aspect. And again, projects are a great way to build teamwork experience, your skills. And if you don't have formal work experience, this is what you should be leaning into to start putting stuff on your resume, on your LinkedIn, on your Handshake. All right, let's get moving. How are you going to get there? So now that we've done a lot of, vision board planning and a lot of searching inside yourself and thinking about like, what do I want to do with my life? Now, how exactly are you going to get there? The best way that you can do is by running small little experiments. What does that mean? We're not scientists here. What this means is starting to explore, getting involved in a group project, attending a conference or a hackathon, attending this event today. That is already you running a little bit of a experiment on yourself to be like, is this something I'm interested in? Do I want to lean into this? Do I want to build upon the skills of a CS degree? So you're doing that right now. So important things to think about are the short-term and long-term goals. And these are big questions that you should be asking yourself. So again, when it comes to like your values and strengths, where do you feel most in the zone, right? Like, I love doing this stuff. I love working with students, working with all of you, because I'm able to talk about things that I like, hopefully able to give you more information and help you out. And honestly, the day goes by faster when I'm working with students than when I'm sitting, behind my desk. So those are things where I feel like very in the zone. People, who do you want to build relationships with? Again, identifying those people within your life that you want to start creating that network. Small experiments. How do you build upon those skills that you have? And then more long-term goals. So 1 year from now, what do you want to, what does success look like for you? Or what impact do you want to have? Or what skills do you want to develop in that time? Going off of skills, what new skills would be most beneficial to learn? Like, is it the technical interviewing or learning how to code? Or is it more the communication piece? Like maybe coding you're like pretty good at, but you have a lot of trouble communicating or during interviews and things like that. That's maybe where you want to lean into. And taking smart risks. So what are potentially bigger things that you want to do? Maybe you don't feel really comfortable doing a hackathon right now because you want to build your skills, but you can set that goal of like, in a year, I want to participate in a hackathon. And that can be a bigger project that helps you and gives you motivation to build towards that goal. There are different goal types. I'm going to go through this part a little bit faster because again, these are things that you can also do on your own time and reflect on later. But these goals are not mutually exclusive, nor is one more important than the other. In fact, the success of one category might be dependent on another. So for example, there's personal goal types. So things like work-life balance, health and travel, your family, might be academic. So you want to get on the dean's list. You want to go to office hours, especially for that class that you're not doing super well on, and you want that extra support. Perhaps it's developmental. You want to join an organization. You want to learn how to code in Python. You want to start a personal project. Or professional. I want to apply to at least 5 jobs this summer or this coming fall. Or I want to attend at least 5 networking events or find a mentor, which I recommend finding a mentor. So again, these are all different goal types that you can have. And you can start writing these down. So this is in your packet on one of the pages. So we won't do this right now together, but this is something afterward when you're back, when you have some alone time, some free time, to write down what are some of these short-term and long-term goals that you have. And what's important is to make sure that these goals are actionable and not abstract. So a goal isn't necessarily, I want to be the best coder at my school. That's kind of abstract. An actionable goal is I want to make the dean's list and I want to learn how to code in 2 programming languages. Those are more actionable. So once you do that, you take action. And so again, thinking about the motivation that you have will help answer what these goals are. And again, it doesn't matter if your motivation is different from others. Some people are here just because they wanted some free stuff free swag from Google. That's okay. Some people are here because they're thinking of changing their major to CS. Others might be here because they're studying CS and they want to know what they can be doing right now. None of these versions are better than the other. Nothing is more important. But this is just something to hopefully help guide you in the next however long, and give a little bit more structure in what can be a very complicated and sometimes confusing aspect, which is like, what do I want to do with my life career-wise? That's like a pretty big question to ask. So again, how we support growth at Google. So like this is all an activity for y'all, but I continue to do stuff like this at work. And I've been able to do a lot of these things that are here. So I've been able to teach myself different coursework. Tomorrow, I'm attending a class that's how to create decks for executives. So it's very specific, but it's like, okay, if I'm sharing something with my VP, how do I create it in a way that is most effective? I've done a 20% project working on Google accessibility education. So making sure our Googlers internally are creating products that are accessible for all, in particular those with disabilities. And feedback and coaches and advisors. Like I mentioned, I have 2 mentors at work and I still talk to them. They've been my mentors for the past 5 years. And these are all things that I didn't honestly plan on doing, but were offered at Google. Many other large companies offer similar things, but I think Google puts a lot of emphasis on continuing to develop their employees once they start working. Okay, so it's 2:25. I've talked for like an hour and a half. So before we jump into our next session, which is the technical interview workshop, we're just going to do a quick 5-minute break. So feel free to use the bathroom, get some water, and then be back here at 2:30, and we will go into the technical interview workshop portion. And for those virtually, please be back in 5 minutes. Feel free to pop up for a little. All right, all right. Hello, everyone. We are just gonna get started right away. At 3, we have our panel from 3 to 4. So I want to make sure that we end right on time there so that when the other Googlers join, we spend a lot of the time asking questions. For all of you, feel free to start thinking about what questions you want to ask them. This is like really your opportunity to ask whatever you want, whether it's like, how did you get to Google? What advice do you have? Do you like working at Google? We actually had a high school student yesterday who specifically asked our panel, what is your least favorite thing about Google? And I'm like, oh, okay. But you can ask those questions. So think of what you are really interested in, because we will have 4 Googlers that work across different products, but are all technical. So you can really ask them like, hey, what was the interview process like for you? Do you like your role? What's the most challenging thing? What's something you didn't expect? So think of those questions. And if you're in the room, we still have a Google hat, 2 notebooks, and many other of the black notebooks, but the white ones are a little bit nicer. Okay, going into the technical interview. Whether you decide to apply at Google, whether you decide to work at other tech companies, even outside of tech, if you are considering a tech role, you will most likely have to do a technical interview, especially like CS. So even if you're going to like financial industry, healthcare, all these things, but if you're going as a CS or CS related student, you'll probably have to go through some sort of technical interview. I also have a couple of questions in the chat, so I can address those really quick before diving in. A hackathon is essentially a competition where computer science students will work on a problem or try to solve some sort of problem or create a project within a limited time frame. So usually hackathons are like a day long or 2 day long. So that is a hackathon, but feel free to Google it and you can learn more and learn about hackathons that are happening in the near future. Data structure, a question is data structure SQL? Data structure is a computer science concept. Data structures and algorithms. Honestly, I wish I could tell you a little bit more about what data structures are, but I don't know or don't feel confident in my ability to explain it well. But it is a CS concept that is very important to know if you plan on working as a software engineer or computer science. Okay, let's dive right in. So a little bit about the interview process, just so you are familiar. For internships, it's a little bit different from full-time, but when you apply to a role at Google, the first step that we'll have you do is a coding exercise and survey. The coding exercise and survey is basically a way to assess your coding capabilities and coding skills. And a survey is to see what type of work you're interested in or what type of projects you like. If you move on to the next round, you will do 1 to 2 phone interviews, and this will be with a recruiter and also a software engineer. This phone interview is really to understand a little bit more about you, about your work. So we only get to see a little bit on your resume, but when you get a phone interview, you can talk more about the value and the impact that you would bring to the internship. From there, we have the Eng review project search phase. So at Google, the way that we match interns is on where they will add the most value. So let's say you have a lot of experience within, let's just say like security, like cybersecurity, like you do a lot of hackathons, you're really good at it, and there is a security project, you will most likely be placed there. We sometimes have students that have a lot of experience in one area of CS, but they want to do a project in, let's say like, they're really have a lot of experience within security, but they want to do UI UX. Most likely that won't happen unless you have that UI UX experience. So that is just something to note. For our full-time roles, the way that it changes is instead of having a 1 to 2 phone interview, you will probably have 1 phone interview with a recruiter, and then you'll have 3 to 5, normally 3, virtual interviews with either the manager of the team, people on the team, different engineers. So it'll be a technical interview, which is what I'll be discussing today. And even though you don't see like a technical interview requirement here in the internship, the coding exercise is pretty much that. And it's good to be preparing for that, even if you are only looking for internships. So how do you prepare? So a little bit more into the snapshot survey and the online coding sample. As part of your interviews, you'll be receiving a coding sample comprised of 2 questions. It's really to better understand your skills and potential that you have to make an impact on the Google team. So what the coding sample will be, it's about 90 minutes. You have unlimited practice before the deadline. So you'll be given, I think it's about a week or so to complete it once you get it. So you can practice that whole week prior before the deadline. And integrity matters. So please do not cheat during these. And the thing is, like, if you do and you do really well on the coding survey, or sorry, on the coding sample, and then you get an internship at Google and you don't actually know how to do any of those things, like that is not good. So make sure to not do that. But make sure that you complete it before the deadline, as you won't have an opportunity to take it again. So I know that's kind of intense, but it's how we do it. So again, being able to practice is really is super helpful. You will be able to answer the questions in one of the following 7 languages: C, C++, Go, C#, Java, JavaScript, and Python. So that is a little bit about the coding sample. The survey takes 15 minutes. It's mostly about your work style preferences, what type of projects you want to do. Now, when it comes, who has done in a virtual interview, whether it's for like a role or just like for any job or anything like that? Okay, some people, few people. Okay, cool. Here are some important things to note as you are going through that interview process, and a lot of them will be virtual now. Make sure your equipment is working properly. I had a presentation once where I didn't realize my laptop had no battery and it died like halfway through and I was nowhere near an outlet. Make sure that doesn't happen to you. Make sure you have good Wi-Fi, find a quiet location, and have an interview space with like a neutral background. So it's super distracting when like you see people walking behind you, things like that. What is great on Zoom and on Google Video is you can blur the background or have a virtual background. So I recommend doing that. Make sure it's charged. Have pen and paper ready because you can take notes, you can scribble things and do that. Sharing your thoughts out loud. I'll get into why this is super important to do. And also don't search for references or the questions. So it is virtual, but like, don't try to Google the questions. It'll be kind of obvious. So just be mindful there. You'll be using our Google virtual interviewing platform, which allows for real-time collaboration and remote coding between the candidate and the interviewer. The best way I can describe this is like a different version of a Google Doc. So if you just want to practice on a Google Doc, you can start writing your code there. So feel free to use that in the meantime, but we do have like a specific platform that you can run your code on. Additional things to remember, make sure they can hear you. So we did this just now before the event started. We were testing the mics, we were testing the videos, making sure that was all good to go, so we didn't have any problems. Zoom and Google both have captions. So if you're like me and sometimes you get distracted or the audio isn't great, use those captions to make sure that you understand everything. If you have to present the tab. Always present the tab. Don't present the screen. If maybe some of y'all have seen on like social media, of like instances where people share the wrong screen, the wrong tab, people see like their text that they're sending. So just make sure you're being mindful when you're presenting. And finally, be yourself. If this is your first time interviewing over video, or if this is something that you're really good at, it can sometimes feel weird talking to a screen and not like a person. But that's okay. Sometimes what I do is I look at the camera on here when I'm answering my question. But just be yourself. I think the biggest thing that I have realized talking to people who have interviewed at Google, being trained to do interviews and helping students go through the interview process, Google really wants to know like who you are, right? I have mentioned so many times that we want to build for everyone and we need everyone. So we want to know who you are as a person. We don't want you to be I don't know. I think a lot of people go into the interview being like, I have to come in as this like hyper professional, extremely good coder that can hack into the Pentagon, and like everything that comes out of my mouth has to be absolutely perfect. No, Googlers say Googlers don't know all the answers. I don't know if we can hack into the Pentagon, like maybe, but like we want to know who you are, right? So just be yourself. And that's the easiest thing to do. So don't put that pressure on yourself to try to be something else. What to expect during the actual technical interviews. So again, you'll be using the VIP platform. You will have about 1 to 3 technical interviews each. There'll be short introductions, but we really will just get into the questions. There will not be any behavioral questions. So like name a time when you faced a challenge and how did you do to resolve it? That's a behavioral question. You won't be getting those in technical interviews. You'll specifically be working on 1 to 3 technical problems. And again, if you need any sort of like accommodation, just let your recruiter know. But most of the time will be spent on these questions. So you could be asked to solve a problem, and you can do that in any way that you choose. And the interviewer can add additional constraints to that problem. This is what the interviewer is looking for. We are looking for how you approach problems. We're making sure that you have a solid understanding of coding languages and that you can code, so that your language syntax and your programming skills are good, that you can write quick code to fix problems right away. That's where practicing comes in. And your ability to use your analytical skills, but also to explain your answer. You can be a fantastic coder. Hello? Hello? What is that? Okay, make sure you're on mute if you're joining virtually. So if you are like a fantastic coder, but you cannot explain your code or you cannot explain why you came up with that, that's not helpful. In the real world, you work with teams, you work with groups of engineers, and you have to explain your code all the time. So that's why communication is super important. So once you really develop your technical skills, a good area to also start working on is the communication piece. So like, how do I explain my code or my problem solving? We are not looking for one right answer, right? Your answer might not be the best one, but if you're able to answer it and explain your reasoning really well, that to us is a much better win. Because when you get to Google, we will help you, we will train you. We don't expect you to be perfect, but what we do want is someone who can communicate and obviously has those solid foundational skills in those languages. That's basically this whole slide. So I won't be super redundant here, but these are just things to think about. You can restate the question. Your interviewer is there to help you first and foremost. They are not there to like poke holes and try to see or try to prove why you won't be a good candidate. They want you to do well. So talking to the recruiter, asking them questions, thinking out loud is super helpful. And that's where a pen and paper is also nice if you need to like draw a picture or visualize your thoughts. If you prefer to think in silence, just say that and then summarize when you're done. So all these things are really important. So we will not give you any brain teaser questions. There's no like random questions of how many pennies tall is the Empire State Building? That is like an actual question I got once for an interview. And they were looking at like how I would approach the problem, not necessarily the right answer, but we do not ask those questions. We did an internal study and realized that it actually doesn't provide any benefit to doing that. And so don't be demoralized also. These questions are hard. You know, there are people who have not gotten the correct answers, but have still gotten a job or still received an offer or moved forward. So we're not expecting, again, for the perfect solution. We want to assess those other skills. Again, these are some of the languages that I recommend being familiar with, at least 2. It used to be 1, now it's 2. So that is a change in the minimum qualifications at Google. I wouldn't be surprised if this starts becoming a norm at other companies. And it's okay if you don't know all of them, or if you know some that aren't on here. As long as you're familiar with like 2 languages really well that you can code in an interview setting, that's good. Yeah. Go is like Google's programming language. Yeah, so that is just one that we use, but most people, most students don't use Go. I would say the most popular ones are those first 4. Okay, again, don't worry too much about not having the perfect code. Obviously, we want to make sure that it is correct and readable and it works, but don't worry about small syntax errors or punctuation. We want the substance of the code to really shine through. These are some things you should know. I recommend either taking a picture of this or writing it down, but I think taking a picture might be easier. These are things that may be covered in the technical interview process. And so these are things that you should familiarize yourself with. Data structures and algorithms. I will say this 10 million times if I have to, so you remember. Data structures and algorithms is very important concepts that you should know and are a requirement when you are applying for internship and full-time roles. So I would either make sure that you are taking a class as soon as possible, as soon as you can in data structures and algorithms, or start familiarizing yourself with the concepts through projects that you want to work on over the summer, things like that. Anything that you can put on your resume that includes data structures and algorithms will be amazing. So that is that. Interview consideration. This is like, as an interviewer, I'm not going to be interviewing you because I am not a technical Googler, but these are the questions that they are thinking of as you are answering your questions. One is coding proficiency. So making sure that they have proficiency in programming language and in programming patterns. That's just going to be like a foundational one. You don't need to have like things memorized, but you do need to have like an understanding of like how to code and good code. Code efficiency. So again, like finding the optimal solution for a problem. We want to see someone who is going to create a solution that is also the most efficient, not one that takes an hour to run the code, maybe one that takes 5 minutes, you know, so code efficiency is going to be important. Code readability, so good style. So again, you don't need to worry too much about like the syntax and stuff of that, but just making sure it's legible. And also problem solving skills. So really being able to analyze data and create solutions. A lot of these questions are kind of open-ended. And so it's up to you to create that structure and that solution. And this is where we want to see your creativity in your problem solving. And lastly, confident and inquisitive. So this is where I'll also say, fake it till you make it. You know, I do that a lot when I started working. You aren't going to know everything. You might be really nervous, but if you fake it, the interviewer won't know. And guess what? Like, you might actually feel more confident with it as well. But what I really mean by confident and inquisitive, it means that you are not afraid to ask clarifying questions. You can talk through your problem and solutions, and you're confident in your problem solving ability. Now, for the last bit, for the last 8 minutes before we jump into the panel, these are 4 steps that we've identified for acing your technical interview. So I'm going to walk through these 4. The first, clarify the question, design the solution, write your code, test your code. If you're just starting your exploration into CS or technical interviews, this is a really important and useful framework that you can use as you're going about answering questions. First is clarifying the question. So many times we see candidates who don't understand the question, but they just jump to the solution, and they can waste a lot of time answering the wrong question. So it's important to clarify the question first and make sure that you go through the right path to find that solution. So feel free to ask your interviewer, hey, can you repeat the question? Or inputs and outputs. So understanding, like, what are the different factors that comprise this question? Additional information that you can ask. So can numbers be negative, repeated? This all makes sense during like the technical interview process. But if these are questions that you have, feel free to ask them out loud, because it ends up providing more structure into the solution. Also, if you're like really lost or don't know, you can say that to the interviewer. You can say like, hey, I'm kind of lost. I have these 2 different solutions. I'm thinking of this one, but would love to get your thoughts. You can ask that during an interview. The best interviews are the ones that are more conversational, rather than they say, I say, they say, I say. So feel free to ask those questions too. There is confidence in admitting that you don't know something. Second is design a solution. So after you've asked those clarifying questions, you have a little bit more guidance into how to solve this. It's important to plan and design your solution. So one thing to consider as you're planning this is, what are some trade-offs for your solution? Like, are there things that might not work as well, but maybe that risk is better? Could you make it faster somehow? Use less memory. Remember, one of the things that the interviewers are looking for is code efficiency. So don't forget to also talk through your algorithms and your code and start thinking out loud. It's super important. And again, you can iterate at the end. So let's say you like go through the problem and you're like, oh, I could actually improve this somehow. You can do that as well. So this is just designing a solution. You're not writing any code yet. That's actually the 3rd step. So you shouldn't be writing anything until step 3. Step 1 and 2 are to prepare yourself for the actual writing of your code. So once you've designed and talked through your solution with the interviewer, you can implement this and start writing your code. So it's a good idea to break your solution into smaller parts. And it's okay to continue having a conversation and ask them for questions and even hints. So it's important, for example, to write in full code. It's also really important to write in the code and language that you're most comfortable with. I showed all the different languages that we have. Just because you heard from previous people that interviewed that like they use Java doesn't mean that you have to use Java. Use whatever you're best at. So that's going to be, again, leaning into your strengths. And breaking the solution into smaller parts is just an easier way. One, it's more readable, and it also helps you break down the question a little bit more. And lastly, as we always do, is test your code. Don't assume that your code works. You do need to test it. Walk your interview through your code line by line, using those communication skills and also the edge cases. And try to run through at least 1 or 2 test cases to really check your work. This is where, like, if you realize that you can improve the solution even more, you can talk about it. So like you've written your code, as you're going down line by line, you're like, oh, you know what? I actually would have changed this code to this for XYZ reason. That way they know, they're like, okay, they caught themselves. And even though they have finished, they're still thinking of ways of how it can be improved. These are some common mistakes to avoid. Jumping into the code. Why should you not jump right into the code? Because we care more about how you got to your solution than the solution itself. So again, you don't need to be correct in that solution, but we want to understand your process. So clarifying questions are really important because while we can offer some hints, clarifying questions are going to be the easiest way to help you find your solution. Another thing, not discussing examples and not thinking of testing your code. So always, again, talk out loud and leave time to test your code. Be careful not to spend too much time testing, but make sure, again, at least once or twice. And lastly, again, discussing improvements or alternative solution. Number 3, not writing real code. So again, this is where pseudocode comes in. If you don't know what pseudocode is, it's basically like an abbreviated version of coding that isn't necessarily the one that you want to use for your formal technical interview. So don't use pseudocode in your solution and don't mix real code with pseudocode. And lastly, not understanding the question or prematurely optimizing. So this is again where asking for clarifying questions is super important. Don't shy away from verbalizing a simple solution and then improving upon it. Basically, the way I would consider these interviews is you're going in with a tutor and they are giving you a question to work on. And the same questions that you would ask your tutor or your TA or your professor, you can ask this interviewer to help you with. So my final best practices before we dive into the panel are 1, explain. It's always okay to over communicate. It's important that we know your thought process. Clarify. Many questions will be deliberately open-ended and vague. So honestly, clarifying questions is like necessary for you to answer these questions. Improve. Your first solution is not always the best one. So once you've come up with solutions, think about how you would improve it and let your interviewer know what you're thinking. And practice. If you have never done a technical interview before, or if you have, the good news is you can improve with practice. This is something that you can get better at, or at least more confident and more comfortable in. And you can, again, practice this coding in a Google Doc. You can do mock interviews with your fellow students, your other friends, people in your clubs, even your professors. Like, hey, would you mind doing a technical mock interview with me for like an hour? These are things that are in your power to do to help with that process. So that is all I have on technical interviewing. I know that might have sounded a little bit daunting, or if you're very new to CS, you're like, whoa, what is this? That's okay. I wanted to share this information so you understand the expectations of the recruitment process for someone who has a CS degree. And again, these are things that you can always work on. The important things to remember are to practice, over communicate, and be yourself. So with that being said, I will move over to our Google panel. But before that, I believe we have one announcement. Yeah.
Thank you. What is another stress test? So you can just stand up and come in the front. We'll take a picture together because our awesome photographer will stand here. You want to come around and then we'll do the panel right after.
Sounds good.
She has to go there and we have a lot of it. So come in the front, we'll face that way. Can you get the Zoom, maybe Zoom thingy, like who can say we do it in the Zoom maybe?
Sure. Yeah, one sec.
Everybody come on the front, we'll take a picture. And then a couple of them.
I might have to stop.
Can you tell us how we want, should we go outside or should we stay here? I think here is fine if I'm not on my feeling. Yeah. So who wants to do that? No, my. All of us should come.
Most people have their camera off, so do we want to have,
Yeah, we can just maybe.
or we can have like the slide?
The other one, the first slide, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
keep that on and then we move this one.
Yep.
Thank you. Can't see you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like that, that would be, yeah.
Should we turn on our cameras?
Yeah, you can.
I don't know how sure, but
What, you want to come?
okay, yeah, I'm coming. Okay.
Any questions? Everybody in?
Yeah.
Everybody in the middle, the last space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, do we have all of our Googlers on the Zoom? If you can just quickly unmute and say, hey.
Then now we probably can put them back.
Hey,
Hey.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Hey, I'm here too.
We can just.
I'm here.
Yeah, I'll probably have to,
Introduce them first and then.
no, I'll just move this back here. All right, one sec, y'all. We'll get started just as I exit. Okay,
There you go.
there we go.
Hi, Matt.
All
Should
right.
we move the camera?
Yes, I'm gonna change the camera.
So let me just do this.
Oh, no, that can stay there. I just need to switch the video. So y'all can see everyone. Yay. Okay. And then just double checking that I have the other two panelists. Arcelia and Kenneth, are you there?
I think right there. Keep coming in.
Oh, it says, it looks like they're having some trouble getting into the Zoom.
Really? What did it say?
Perhaps their email, were they added to the email?
No, she's here. I see her.
Oh.
She's in the corner, right? That's right.
Oh yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
Kenneth, are you able to join? I don't know if Kenneth is there.
Hey, she's here.
Yeah, so I'm letting him know. I had to log in to my Zoom account before it allowed me to join.
Yes, okay. Perfect. Okay, well, let's just get started and then, yes, thank you, Arcelia, for putting that into the group chat. So this is the panel time. This is the time for y'all to ask your questions and get some of the swag that we have left. So I will have the panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with our Googler that we have live in person, and then we'll move over virtually. If you do have a question, the one thing that I will ask is you can either just say it out loud and I will repeat it, or you can come here just to make sure that those joining virtually can hear the questions. So actually what might be easier is you yell out the question and then I will repeat it out loud. If you are joining virtually, I ask that you use the chat to ask your questions. And I will have the chat pulled up on the side. So to start, would you like to introduce yourself? Please let us know your name, your role, how long you've been at Google, and what your favorite food that you've had recently at the office is.
Okay, so I'm Anya and I work at the Google office here in New York and I'm on Google Suite. I joined last June after working at Goldman Sachs and I graduated in 2020. And my favorite food that I had at the office recently was scallops.
Oh, okay. All right, Matt, we'll pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Matt. I'm a software engineer at Google. I've been with the company for almost 4 years now, and I work on their internet infrastructure. I got my bachelor's degree in 2016, where I was undeclared in my first year, and then I switched it into computer science in my sophomore year. And then, yeah, since I got my bachelor's degree, I've been at 2 companies, including Google.
Awesome, thank you. Next up, Arcelia, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arcelia Posadas. I graduated in 2019 from the University of Central Florida. I started out as a Salesforce developer. I worked from startups to a large bank, and now I'm at Google. Favorite food, actually, recently, ramen. We had a ramen bar set up at our cafe, and that was actually pretty lit.
Yum. And yes, sorry, Arcelia. And then last but not least, let's pass it over to Kenneth. Well, he might still be joining, actually. Oh, he's still trying to join. Okay, so when he joins, Kenneth Crew, yeah, he's just signing into his account. So we'll have him introduce himself when he joins.
I would mention that I've been to Google Play. They have so much food. Ridiculous. They have 2 floors of food, and you just go around and like you just eat all day.
This is true. They have something called the Google 10, which is similar to the freshman 15 from college. Definitely something that happens. But we have a lot of great food, which is cool. And it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So if you want to be there all day, have all your meals, you can definitely do that. Alrighty, so I'm going to kick it off with the first question. And then if you're joining virtually, just like I mentioned before, raise your hand if you would like to answer. So the first question that I have for y'all is, what is something you did at your university that helped you in this current role? So whoever wants to start can answer that question. Anyone so inclined? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, was that for me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So something that I actually did my first it was my sophomore year of undergrad. We had an internship program called Camp Yes, and basically this was a program like dedicated towards low-income, first-generation, underrepresented groups. I ended up joining this internship program, and they ended up pairing me with another company, and that's something that I like. Starting out, I wasn't really good at, was kind of putting myself out there, and so having like a program that managed that for me and paired me with different companies and set up interviews for us was something that was really helpful and kind of helped me get started, feeling a little bit more comfortable putting myself out there and also networking.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think Matt, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think something that I would really highly encourage is getting internships while you're still in college, because, you know, I mean, it's the classic, like, you need to get a job, you need experience, but to get experience, you need a job, right? And so, like, how do you ever break into this kind of like infinite cycle? And I think the easiest way to break in is to get an internship, because employers know that you're a student. They'll know that, you know, it's essentially an internship is kind of a part of it is like a tryout for a full-time job, but it's also like a training program. And so yeah, it's a great way to gain experience, to really bolster your resume ahead of applying for full-time jobs. And it's also a great way to try things out. You know, I mean, you can, if you're interested in like maybe doing like iOS development or maybe back-end development or maybe ML or whatever, and there's just too many options, you're not sure where to go. internships can be a great way to kind of just try things out before you jump into the industry full time.
Yeah, sure thing.
So, to get an, talking loud.
I'll repeat the question. Yeah.
So to get a software engineer and internship, you have to have really good programming skills, and we're also having other classes, right? So would they recommend to focus more on TFT classes and not care about GPA that much? I just wanted a real honest advice. No, like you try it out, we can't. It's like computer science is so.
Yes, that's a great question. So the question essentially, and correct me if I'm missing anything, is where should we focus our, as a student, where should you focus your energy on most if you do want to land that internship? And is it okay for some areas, such as like your GPA or your other classes, to not be as much as a priority? Does anyone have any thoughts there?
I can give my opinions on this. I think some people might disagree with this, but I think GPA, I would focus on your classes. I think, you know, a GPA is, in my opinion, a good indicator of, it's a good indicator, right? Because life is full of, in life, we have to do a lot of things that we don't want to do, right? We have to hit certain deadlines. We have to work in group projects with people that we may not want to work with. There's all sorts of, things we have to do. And I think a GPA is a good sign that people can get things done, and, you know, respect deadlines and kind of work within the system. And so I think personally a GPA is a good signal, but I know that not everyone would agree with that. In terms of what you can actually do while you're juggling, you know, your college life, what I would recommend first off is kind of like understanding how the game is played. And what I mean is, like, just like with college, where there's like a fall semester and a spring semester, internship recruiting follows cycles as well. And companies will interview or will have open positions for, you know, fall internships and spring internships and stuff at certain times. And you need to figure out when those windows are, so that you can kind of work backwards from there. I'm not gonna say when the windows are, because it's been like years since I've done this and I might be inaccurate, but I'm sure your career counseling department will know tons about this. But essentially, you know, let's say like internships, applications for internships open at, you know, I don't know, whatever, April, for example. If you know that, that's when you need to apply. You can work backwards from there, right? So you think like, okay, I'll maybe need a couple weeks to get my resume up to shape, which means that, you know, I'll need to start working on my resume mid March. And then, you know, you might need to do some interview prep or whatever, and that might take you a month or 2 months. And so, you know, working backwards, you can kind of tell when you need to get started on things. And then the last thing I'll say, sorry, I don't want to dominate this conversation, but the last thing I'll say is, you know, leverage your career counselors at your college, right? Like, they review hundreds of resumes, they see hundreds of job applications. This is their job, right? And so, you know, ask them for a resume review, ask them for help with interview prep, ask them for their advice, like leverage the resources available to you.
Yeah, Anya?
I do have a different perspective. I barely declared my major, and I double majored. I didn't declare CS. My grades weren't good enough. Then I switched to data science because it was a new major and they didn't have a GPA cutoff. So that's why I was lucky. But I would say, looking back, the main thing I regret is not focusing on my lower classes, like algorithms and stuff, because that is what the interviews are going to be. So I regret not doing, focusing on those. The further classes are fun and all, but I haven't used those skills day to day, honestly, that much. I know different per person, but those lower classes are what's really going to help you in your interview. So you can always cycle back to your notes, make sure you do well on those. But how I got my job was basically recruiters reaching out to me and friends who referred me and gave me their recruiter info. The only thing where GPA still matters is some older companies like Goldman Sachs, Citadel, they ask for GPA, but otherwise no one really cares, especially after your first job or your first interview becomes less important. So
Yeah, RC?
Hey, yeah, I kind of want to back that up as well. I had like a set of circumstances my first like 2 years of undergrad that led to my GPA dropping quite a bit. And something that I regret and look back on now is not having just kind of put myself out there for more internships. And so I think that GPA does matter. Yes, it's like if you have like a 1.2, it might be a little bit harder, but I think that focusing on putting yourself out there for internships, regardless of whether or not you think you meet the qualifications, because more often than not, the qualifications, like I'm going to be fully transparent, I didn't have the background that I thought I needed prior to even joining this company or any of the internships that I did in undergrad. And I applied anyways. And a big part of that is really connecting with the person that you interview with, making sure that you have those interpersonal skills. And those skills will take you a lot further than you think that they might. Don't get me wrong, the technical skills are very important, but something that really does, and I have noted that noted this, and I've interviewed people as well, is like having those interpersonal skills and the ability to connect with the people who are interviewing you with really does like take you very far. And so like don't be afraid. My advice is like don't be afraid to apply to internships. Don't waste like 3 years thinking that you need to like bring your GPA up and you need to take like XYZ classes before you can apply, because at worst they say no, and at best you land that internship. And I think having that audacity to put yourself out there is really valuable.
Thank you. All right, so we have Kenneth here who joined us, and I see that his hand is raised. So Kenneth, before you answer the question and add your thoughts, if you could please introduce yourself. Let us know what team you're on, how long you've been at Google, and what was one of the favorite things that you've eaten recently in the office.
Yeah, sorry for joining very late. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well as well. Hope you all learn from every one of us. Yeah, I study in Puerto Rico, University of Puerto Rico, Maya West, as a software engineer. Also graduated with a minor in project management. I have been in Google for the past 10 months already. So yeah, almost there to my year mark. And I joined as a network operations resident in a residency program. So it's a rotational program going around the network in Google. So most of what is working with data centers and working with data with network devices to supply as the infrastructure for our clients, but as well for everybody in Google. So all the different PAs are also involved, and they're created from those efforts from our teams. Right now, I'm doing the role of a TPM. So it's a really nice, that's technical program management for those that do not know. That's mostly a different approach that we're giving it, because we really, instead of just being a PM that manages the technical part of the program, you're doing sort of both. And it's really interesting and dynamic if you all get the experience to do it. What was the other question, Juan? The food?
Oh yeah, the food.
The food. Well, I will always get Coke. If not, vitamin water, lemonade. Yeah, I will always go for those two. Yeah, that will be liquid, but I would do the peppercorns. Those are very good, very cheesy ones, or even the spicy ones. I tried them the other day. It was quite spicy, more spicy than I thought.
Awesome, thank you, Kenneth.
Yeah, so going to answer the question, was the focus on to land in internships. I really wanted to say that it's a myth, there's no one path to get an internship. I really lacked having an internship right where I wanted to, but I really open up to go to internships or to opportunities in where I saw the opportunity to develop my skills. So you will see somebody studying computer engineer, software engineer to go to Google or to Microsoft. But my first internship was in Johnson and Johnson, and what I did there, really helped me just get a little bit more perspective of what the industry is. And that really helped me a little just to get my goals straight, but as well do other stuff like get more exposure in student associations and projects. I heard Matt, I think, talking with professors or with counselors in university. Those are good guides that you could really use. But as well, your own way to expose yourself will be with student associations. So there's a bunch there in universities, and even high school students can also benefit from this opportunity. So you can even, for those that have university that have high school students friends, you can also suggest them make a name for yourself starting now, either in 9th, 10th grade to 12th grade, because really when you get into university, you're going to see a lot of competition. And coming from different tech universities that concentrate in this type of background of in STEM, you will really see a lot of people that have been doing a lot of work years and years before, and you will feel a little bit like you're out of touch or maybe out of the curve, as we may say. But really, just bringing your own angle, your own approach, your own way will really make you stand out as much that landing that internship will feel more natural than, well, anybody would think that it will be the conventional way of get an internship because I get 4.0 GPA and I got this knowledge. No, if you, as RC said, if you got interpersonal skills, you are a leader. You can prove that you're a leader. You can prove that you can work with a team. That's also something recruiters will really like and will really look for.
Thank you, Kenneth. Yeah, also, I'll just give my personal example. When I applied to Google, I had a 3.1. And my recruiter did ask, they're like, hey, like this GPA, is not, or it's a little bit lower than what we see on average. She wasn't saying it in necessarily like this is bad, but she gave me the opportunity to explain myself. And I told her, I was like, hey, I had some really tough classes in my first and second year that really dropped my GPA, but also I was working as a student. I was involved in all these organizations, and through these organizations and these jobs is where I developed a lot of the skills that I'm highlighting during this interview. And so for them, for me, it was an opportunity to justify why my GPA maybe wasn't as high as they wanted, while still highlighting the value that I would offer as a candidate. So yes, GPA is not the biggest thing, but yes, I see a question back there. That's a great question. Does anyone on the panel, so the question was, we talk about Google about like leadership a lot. And qualities that might be more someone who is extroverted. So if you're introverted, like how do you recommend, participating or getting some sort of leadership skills? Does anyone have any thoughts there? Yes, Kenneth. Yes, your hand is raised.
So, when I always get into a group or going into a bit scenario in which you get a lot of exposure, you may feel that even the extrovert is naturally extrovert, but I'm sincere, being an extrovert myself, I do have my introvert area. So I would say it is as difficult for everybody. So it's much more try to develop that confidence in what you do. That extrovert and introvert thing will really not limit you to really get that confidence because you are comfortable doing what you do. If you're enough confident to do whatever labor you want to do and whatever you measure, you are the leader. And in that going more to the question, like there is where you will see that you will be more effective because you feel you're doing what you have to be doing and not what your image of how a leader should be, it's way moonshot or something. As I said before, just being by yourself, that makes you a leader. So you don't have to look to be like Elon Musk or like Mark Zuckerberg or like Sunder. You could also try to be just yourself, and you will really stand out as well. Just, yeah, get into those exposures of getting out of your comfort zone, because you would get exposed to a lot of people in the industry that may not have your same background, may not have your same situations. As we have said, we have, most of us did not have the same GPAs, so most of us may not have the best skill set technical wise, but in the personal, in the leadership perspective, in a professional perspective, you may stand out even more.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll do RC and then we'll go to Anya.
Hello. Yeah, so I was somebody who was really bad at kind of putting myself out there with whenever like group dynamics kind of came into play. And so one of the things that I started doing prior to even going into a conversation was I did a lot of research. I did as much research as I possibly could on the subject that we were going to be talking about, and maybe writing down on your laptop, like the Notes app, or like if you like analog, if you have like a pen and paper, writing some like key ideas that like came to mind, or questions that you might have to mind come to mind, so that I could come feeling a little bit more prepared, and that gave me like the extra confidence. Something else that I do now that we're in the era of Zoom and Google Meets and whatever, I started posting a lot of questions actually in the chat. And that was kind of like a good way of like me not feeling like I had to like raise my hand and immediately put myself out there, but somebody would eventually be like, oh, like RC brought up this good point in like the Google Meets chat, and then we would start discussing that. And so that kind of gave me the confidence to start putting myself out there more. And the more and more that you do that, the more and more you come to realize that like the people that you're working with, they will be, at least in my experience, have always been very helpful and very kind and like willing to like talk, and nobody is judging you as much as you think that they might be. And so like kind of finding ways that you can do it maybe without verbally saying it at first, be it during through like a chat option, or maybe there's like a doc that you're all writing on, writing your notes there, and then kind of working your way up.
Thank you. And Anya?
Yeah, I agree with all that. And showing initiative is like a huge thing. You don't have to be extroverted to do that really. But when you can, not like push back in an obnoxious manner, but showing that you have different opinions and maybe you think another solution might be better, can really help you like gain like the attention you want in your manager's eyes or something, because it shows you're trying to think outside the box and find like more efficient solutions. And obviously that's a good thing. You don't have to overdo it and like question every single thing, but if you genuinely think this might be better or I have another idea, like you should voice that, and you don't have to go like over the top with it, but it is good to do that too.
Thank you. I think we had another question. Yeah, right here.
Thank you for sharing that here, especially from you don't have like a high GPA, but you still got a chance to publish your interview, talk about your assignment, and I would like to know that in what kind of way that you could be referred, like analyze the people that would put together the first interview, they must be not referred by someone, so I can
Yeah.
no way that being referred, and if you can, what could lead you to have a first interview?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a way I would summarize that question is, how do you recommend starting the networking process, and in particular, interviewing for Google? I think this would be a good opportunity also to like briefly share what your interview experience was, like whether you were referred or not. But does anyone want to take that real quick? All right, let's do, who am I looking at? Okay, let's do RC and then Kenneth, and then we can go from there.
Hey again. Okay, so my interview experience with Google is actually kind of long. I started interviewing with Google during my senior year of undergrad. I went to a like an outreach program at the school that I was at, and I met with the coordinator, and I kind of kept that. I added them on LinkedIn, and we kind of kept that connection open. They referred me, and I started the interview process. I bombed it really hard, and that was that for about a year and a half. A year and a half later, the recruiter that I was working with ended up reaching back out to me on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, do you want to interview with Google?" I said, "Heck yeah, I do." So I went through the interview process again. Basically, it was we had like a phone technical interview at first, and then we had like a Google Meets like coding interview. And then once I passed all of that, I went on to the notorious like 4 back-to-back technical interviews on campus, and I ended up failing. And actually, this was the same thing for the next 2 years. I went back in, I interviewed again, and I didn't get in until basically my fourth try with Google. So like, if you fail, that is part of the process. I've heard of people who have gone through the interview process like 8 times. So don't be discouraged by that. It's just keep going at it. And then the networking question. The first thing I would say is view every person you meet in like a professional capacity as a potential networking opportunity. No matter how small or insignificant that connection might seem, or it might seem like it might not open up doors for you later on down the road. Keep in contact with them. And so like a good personal anecdote for me from that is during my first job like out of college, I became like my manager and I like stayed in contact. We became actually kind of close. Like I developed a really good close working relationship with him. And a year later, when I got laid off by the company, he actually ended up referring me to another company almost immediately, and I got a job directly through just keeping that connection open. So like, not just recruiters, not just like people who you think can give you who have like the channels to give you opportunities, like recruiters, diversity, campus like outreach program managers, anybody and everybody that you know in a professional capacity. Keep that contact with them because you don't know what doors that they might open. And then last, just look for those campus outreach programs. Look for whenever Google might come onto your campus, and go to them. Just keep putting yourself out there. Annoy them. They're there for you.
Okay, Kenneth.
Yeah, +1 to what RC said. Really, I cannot say that even better. Try to expose yourself to all this campus outreach, and as well any other event, conferences. There's a lot of scholarships that will get you to conferences in which all these companies are, and most of those recruiters that go to the conferences are the same ones that go to your campuses. So you might see some familiar faces around there from different companies, right? As well, if you want to feel you're trying to start networking and you don't feel comfortable and going as well with we can tie even a little bit more with the previous question. What if I'm an introvert and I don't know how to network? Networking is, think about it, is like talking with a friend but with a purpose, not an intention, not like you're trying to use that connection for something. You're, yes, in a way you're trying to get a job, that's bottom line, but you really want to bring a purpose. You want to bridge something like fruitful, and that could really bring you or that person some opportunity of growth. You could start that with a peer, a classmate, then with a professor, because professors, we will see them as big respect, as sometimes even as somebody in the company. And then when we're already comfortable talking with professors openly about different topics, either technical, professional leadership, any other topic, then you could as well start networking with different recruiters. That's how you can get used to it. But as well, as RC said, really talk with every single people. Say if you got LinkedIn, that will be the best networking site for you to really connect with them. Most of the networking, most of the recruiters use LinkedIn, and they will reach out because they will see your profile, and I'll know where you will receive an email or a message saying, "Hey, I saw your profile, I saw your resume. You seem like a very good candidate for this opportunity." And then whatever happens, happens. As well, for my interview experience, it was pretty interesting because I sort of never passed the screening part until the other days. It was really, so that really helped me just know that I will have, I will be more prepared, much like in a professional way, in a scenario in which I will be talking with somebody. But in the screening, that at least if most of you have done the application, you have to also do like a little coding if you're going for a software related internship. That really is most, so you could really polish yourself how to whiteboard, and you're not going to have a compiler, you're not going to have some thing helping you, not even AI helping you how to program. So really polish your skills, practice in the way you feel comfortable with your own approaches. So when you're going to talk about it, and then if you go to the face-to-face interviews, or as we say on campus interviews, then you could also feel very organic to talk about your approach while you're coding. So you have the interviewer, and that interviewer will really be more much like a collaborator. You could be like, huh, what do you think about this approach? What do you think about this? Or you'll be like, I'm gonna do like an if clause just to put this edge cases, whatever, and that will really bring you like a top-notch experience in which you're going to show that but as well you're able to collaborate. And that's mostly some of the criteria is down the other bunches that assist, that will really help everybody to the interviews, and really help me when it came to myself at the end of my interviews to get this position I'm at.
Yeah, Anya.
So yeah, so like I was saying, everyone is potentially a resource. I have asked my friends for referrals. Like when I want to leave Goldman, I just asked my friend who works at Apple, can you refer me? We've never worked together. We were friends from high school. And do not be like intimidated by that. A lot of companies also give you a referral bonus if they do end up getting hired. So people are eager to help you out for those reasons. And also recruiters, it looks good for them if they hire people. So if genuinely, if anyone reaches out to you, take it. And I've also known people, like, they don't take the recruiter's offer, but then they pass like their friends name on to their recruiter. They know they're looking for a job. So always ask your friends if they know recruiters that maybe they passed up the opportunity for. And I was referred for Google, so I was able to skip the coding challenges and phone screens. I went straight to onsite and like the 4 or 5 interviews in a row. So that was my experience, and I think it's because I was referred. So definitely use people for their connections whenever you can.
+1 to that. Okay, we are going to take 2 more questions, and then since it's 4:40, we can just do 2 questions and then break for food. Unless we want to break for food for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, who's got the food? Can you guys come, just slowly coming here and take food and go?
Slowly but quickly. We're just gonna for everyone on Zoom, we're just gonna take a quick 4-minute break. So start at 45. We just have some food here. We don't want it to get too cold for the students.
Take one plate. Yeah, I don't have that food.
You can send some food through email. We really appreciate it.
Go to the, I'm like,
I wonder what they're eating. Arroz con pollo.
Oh my God. We were on mute this whole time. I'm so sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. If I can give you a quick summary, it is that it is okay if you just have an associate's degree or no degree. You can still work at Google. There are many ways to get there without just a bachelor's. And the other question was, should we do certificates, Google certificates, which you should do them. We offer a lot of free certificates. And the last great question that we got from someone here in the audience was, what was the biggest skill that you learned once you joined Google? Does anyone want to kick it off? I think I see Kenneth's hand up, so we can start with you, Kenneth. But I would love everyone to answer this question. I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, really skill that I gained from, I'm trying to start from the last to the last to the earlier. The skill I gained from being in Google is mostly vouching for yourself, speaking up for yourself, because all those talents like technical and leadership, you already have them when you're already in there. So what really comes in is mostly that interpersonal skill of working your vouching for yourself, and as well exposing yourself even more efficiently, because most of the times we would just say, maybe I do not deserve it, or maybe I should not pursue this because I'm too new, or too young, and really you have to really start pushing your limit to something more, because you just got there. There's a lot more you can really learn, and if you really do not harvest that skill, it will really be a little challenging to really find your way to grow, because in Google you grow as you want, and not and most of the time you should not expect a manager or somebody up high to tell you this is what you're going to do. We want you to really feel what is your experience, what is your roadmap as well. What was the previous question? One.
Leading me on. The other question was around like the doing Google certificates.
Google certificates will really help in many ways. I think this also goes with the previous question about doing associate's degrees, right?
Yes.
So yeah, going to tie them both, saying any type of knowledge that you can get a certificate or anything like that. And this may, RC and Juan may be a little familiar with this phrase that I'm going to say. It will just give you 100% bragging rights. I'm gonna make that my hashtag of the year. But really, those are bragging rights in which you really have developed yourself. You have really studied to get that knowledge, and you can really say, hey, I did my work. Maybe I was outstanding, maybe I wasn't, but I have this knowledge, I have this information. So that is what is important. You have the degree, either as an associate, bachelor's, PhD, master, as well as certificate. I'm really pursuing to do new certificates, either in Google or outside Google. PMP is one of those. CCNA as well for those that do networking. So really, if you're trying to harvest your skill, get a little more focused, because I saw as well some questions about doing exchange ambassadors for cybersecurity. It would never be wrong if you're gaining something new about it. If you're gaining more knowledge, more something that you will use, and you feel passionate about it, because you're not doing something you're forced to do, go for it. And those associates or certificates will really be more of focus areas. So if you really want to go into a little bit deeper into AI, but not be a master or PhD, which I know it is very expensive compared to the other ones, you could really go for it. Then that could really help you be like, maybe I should pursue the master's or PhD, or just stay with what you have done, because really the certificate or the associate will really give you as much knowledge as the other ones.
Thank you. RC?
Hey, just to make sure I remember the question correctly, it was what's one skill I developed while at Google?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is gonna sound super trite. Being comfortable with failure. So my prior work experiences, they were either more startup type of scenarios or um, where I was kind of put in this position where I was the leader. Even from the get-go, like my first position, I was kind of already put as like a not as a manager, but as somebody who was like overseeing other engineers. And so I was kind of always expected to have the answer for everything or to be like super knowledgeable about everything. So I never really developed the ability or like the comfort to be okay with not knowing something or with failing at something. And being at Google, our tech stack and everything that we use, we have like a million. We have a tool for like everything. And so it's literally impossible to be a subject matter expert on literally everything. And so something that I have been working on cultivating and have really honed in on over the past 7 months now is just being comfortable with like not knowing something and reaching out for help. I have found like everyone on my team is super supportive. They're always willing to give me answers. They're always willing to take time out of their day to sit with me and coach me through something. And that has kind of helped also fight some of the imposter syndrome that I had coming into Google. And so yeah, just it's been something that's been really helpful for me.
Matt, would you like to share your thoughts? If not, okay, there we go.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I've learned at Google so far, I think they call it like Chesterton's fence, where essentially like when you come across something you don't understand, you one reaction might be like, why did someone do something this way? It's not the way I would do it. It's bad design. But the other way to think about it might be like, well, people are generally competent at their jobs. Other people are, if not, are at least as competent, if not more competent than I am. And so when I see something I don't understand, there's probably a good reason why that person did something that way. And so I should try to understand it before I completely dismiss it. You might see this come across as like, people always wanting to rewrite code, always wanting to tear down an old system and write it their own way. But yeah, for me, just kind of trying to understand why people did things the way they did has been very helpful.
Thank you. And Anya?
So technically, I was a back-end engineer at Goldman and data scientist in college, and now I'm a front-end engineer, and I had no previous experience in that, so that was a huge learning curve for me. And then, more subjective way, I guess taking ownership and not just waiting someone to tell me what to do. Like that's how I was always, but now like I try to give my own input or suggest things, or like not wait around for someone to tell me what to do and just start it. And if they don't need it anymore, that's fine. I didn't waste my time. I was trying my best. So yeah, taking ownership and not being so passive.
Awesome. Thank you. I would love to give a quick round of applause to all of our panelists. Thank you so much for joining. And thank you for having us. Before I pass it back, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time. For those of you who are here the whole time, thank you for spending a couple hours with us. I will share some additional resources and information with y'all after, and hopefully it's passed along. But with that being said, I'll pass it back to Professor Azar. And thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have maybe one question for all of you. Maybe I don't know if you're gonna get to go to it. This is the final exam in 2 weeks probably, right? But I really appreciate all of you coming today. And hopefully you learned something. We'll share this information. As I said, this is a relationship building with Google. We're gonna make it faster. You can do different experience with Google and eventually get a job with there, right? But I want to ask one quick question because I think it has been in our mind in our campus. So we have a very few women in computing. We have a lot today. I'm so happy to see them here. But if you look at a classroom, it's basically, 10%, 20, 15% probably in any given classroom. And I think, Anya or someone else in the group, you can mention that, like, how is it in Google? And what do you recommend the women in computing can do to be successful? Or what are your barriers or struggles if you had any?
I'm pretty lucky on my current team. I play like half, and like a lot of us are on the younger side. That's a lot of just starting our career, so that's really pleasant. At Goldman, my manager was a woman, and she really wanted me to succeed, and she was like a mentor figure. So I've been really lucky. But in college, I went to UC Berkeley, and there's definitely a lot of like males that I had to interact with, like mainly in my CS classes, and it definitely did give me a bit of an imposter syndrome, and it took my manager at Goldman to like kind of get me out of my own head. So I would just like, I recall so many times where they thought they were right, even though I wasn't doing anything wrong. There was just a bug or something, but they made me feel like I was wrong. So I wish I hadn't let them influence my decision so much, and like, because they were just more confident in me, and like imposter syndrome, a lot of people feel it. I wish I'd realized sooner that I was just incompetent, and it didn't matter their opinion of me. All that matters is if we all got jobs and whatnot, like we all got hired at the same place, and
Thank you. Thank you. I guess it goes to all of you again. Thank you again for everybody coming, and the group especially. Thank you, everybody. Let's get around the top. Have a good time exam. And those of you taking C211, we have a financial workshop happening, prep workshop happening in the 11th floor. So you can go there and then talk to girls about this. Who's the 11 here? Is that 11? So I can take you down there to say hi to professor before you go away. Okay. Okay. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Feel free to take a notebook. We have some extras.
Okay.
But if you asked a question and you didn't get a notebook, make sure that you get one first. All right. Thank you.
You have red ticket?